Okay, thank you. I just want to use it for my reference. Go ahead.
Sure. This just shows the other pane here. So I created this table called Client GL Map.
Mm-hmm.
And this is essentially where you could edit and add additional records. I don't have anything in here currently because there were some questions on the initial report out there, but this is where for each client, the type would be whether it's like a pay code or a deduction or a benefit or a credit back or the charge and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We can specify by department, by code, and then their actual GL account number. Mm-hmm. And then under the views here, I've actually created, this is what actually exports the data. And then this summarizes it by department here. Mm-hmm. So, like actually if I come into here, I'm just going to say edit top 200. It's going to grab 200 records from some random client. But this is what's pulling into the SSRS report, and the SSRS report has a parameter where you can specify the date, which client, like which invoice number you want to do.
That's the top specifications over there on the right?
Well, the SSRS basically uses this file as a source query, but it only pulls in the specific client and invoice number that is relevant. Right now, this is just pulling every client out there based on what it sees in your tables. So, like for client 001, it sees that there's an invoice 3, and it was a charge called admin fee for that amount, and then there was a delivery fee for that amount. But ultimately, when SSRS accesses this view, it filters it based on these two records, so it only pulls in the relevant invoice, for that particular GL.
Okay. So this would be if we put those accounts and everything in for that client, can we then filter? You pulled the top 200. How do you filter, say, for client X, invoice Y?
Well, now, you wouldn't necessarily need to do it in here, but you can do a filter, like for that one client.
Let's work on. I'm going to work on 98. I've got their stuff in front of me.
I'm just grabbing a random invoice here, but.
Yep.
So this is essentially, now they have more than 200 records. It stops at 200. But what I usually recommend we do is, let me minimize this for right now. Can you bring up that SRS webpage?
I can't. Where is it? There it is.
Okay. So it was 98, right?
Yeah.
Is there a particular invoice number that you would want to reference?
Let's do, yeah, let's just do 21.
Okay. So we just put that in there and hit view. So this is essentially going to produce what we just saw in the SQL Management Studio, except it kind of looks a little prettier, and it also has a GL account column. Now, what I would, and then also if we go to the very end of the report, just on the screen here, I'm just going to verify one thing here. All right. So I added a total. So basically, ultimately, this should always balance to 0 because you want your debits and credits, you know, obviously to balance.
Yep.
If it didn't balance to 0, then we would have to investigate to see why. Once in a while, I had seen that if Darwin, for some reason, did not credit back the proper amount to the client, say under gross wages credit, but the GL report actually kind of looks more at the employee detail and says, well, based on what you have set up, these codes should be crediting back. So it doesn't pull that gross wage client credit, you know, lump sum amount into the report. It kind of looks at more detail because when people are crediting back, they may want those credits to go to different accounts usually. You know,
right.
401k would go to this account, health insurance might go to this account, uniforms to this account, whatever. So, you know, it's 0 here, so basically that tells me, okay, everything's in balance. Now we just need to specify where the accounts go. So if you come up to here, and we can send this to Excel, the first step in kind of like getting a client a file with their account numbers is to like run this generic one. And you may need to drag Excel over to this screen if it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm spacing off here. I'm thinking about how I'm going to do this. Okay.
Okay. So essentially, what we want to do is fill out this. You know, this is where where you will put your mapping in. So you could say, I'm just going to make up an account for right now, but okay, their administration fee should go to, you know, 11,000. Now these are all credits. Now, in a lot of cases, they may put a lot of credits to a lot of things. So you'll, I'm just going to make up something here. You know, you can of course start to.
So those are not necessarily by department. Those are just the deductions in whole. Is that right?
Correct. Correct. Now, most of the time, and there are some clients I've come across that are exceptions, things that are crediting back to the client really don't have to go, like, if they have like a 401k or a health insurance liability, they usually don't track it in separate departments in their system. They just kind of put it into one GL account because that's what they're going to pay it out of. So, as a general rule for the credits, because it could get make the report even larger, I don't specify a department just because there's not really a reason to, although I have come across certain clients that do want that, and I usually just make a separate version of the GL that will break out anything crediting back by department. But then for like each department for their employer taxes, we would just put in the accounts here. So once you basically fill out this whole file, now it's kind of one of those things, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of effort the first time. What I do is I strip out the invoice number and the amount. Actually, I'm going to leave the amount, but I'm just going to delete the data there, and I'm going to delete this column here. So now I'm going to put this name in here just for reference. I have 6 columns here. If I were to go back to, can you bring up the Management Studio?
Uh-huh.
If I look at the GL map, you can kind of see how they're the exact order of the columns.
Yep.
So all we have to do is, once you fill out this Excel file, is just basically come out here, highlight the whole thing. I'm just going to...
You going to tell me we can copy this? I love it.
Yep, we're just going to basically copy, and then you can paste all of it in there. And now when we rerun the report, now that leading 0 would have been an issue. We want to make sure those stay. If we rerun this report, and I don't remember if I used the right fee or not. Let's see, I might have this extra space. No.
Is that it right there on the 98? That extra space?
Well, there's actually a buffer there, so it kind of allows for more.
Okay.
Let's see if I...
But that's what you're looking for, right? Is an extra space in the field?
Yeah. I was double checking, namely on the, if that one would matter. Charges look good. Actually, I might need to look at the report and make sure I have the mapping flowing in properly, because I didn't have anything in the table to test with yet. But essentially, we would just copy and paste everything here, and then it will flow into that GL account, so that you could rerun a report and all the GL accounts would populate. Now, since we have that part done, if the client says, hey, can you put it in this specific format so I can just take that file and import it, that's just playing with the fields and moving them around at that point. If we go into, can you go to your Citrix apps, and let's go into the SSRS report builder.
Okay. Over here.
And
trying to get this over too. It's kind of like a...
Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and hit just blank report. And the other main windows there, if you want to drag it back over.
Yeah, I can't. Oh, there it goes. Now it's letting me do it. Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to go up here to open. You not have your sign, which
So what you're doing now is what you've already done for what you just showed me. Is that correct?
Correct. I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping since I think this is the first time you've been into this window.
Yep.
Let me Yeah, should be showing us the there we go. So this is basically where how that report got published to begin with. This tool basically lets you specify like what the data source is going to be, a data set, and then I basically, drug these fields to like a data grid here, and then, from here we can actually control, appearance and stuff like that, and the column widths and stuff. Let me just verify. Okay, so GL account, I actually don't have.
So I'm just baffled here. With all the ThinkWare clients that need GL Export, why isn't this the solution? This is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, I get, well, they have that one thing, but I guess they just didn't really want to put the effort into it.
Oh, it's terrible.
Now, I did notice in the new Darwinet, I kind of looked at their new GL option, which it actually looked very detailed, I'll say, to where you can specify kind of like everything I've done here.
Right? It's beautiful.
Looks more involved because you kind of have to hand key it into a screen versus looking at an example GL file.
But it doesn't work. Do you know why there is some limitation with the size of a client? They're telling me that, like, yeah, it works for 20 employees and under, but I just don't understand
I don't know why that would matter.
I know. That's what just doesn't make any sense. That's the ultimate solution. That helps you that, but it doesn't work. So this is going to be our bridge to get us there. Ultimately, it will work, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now, like with doing it this way, basically, if you have a client that starts, using new codes or needs new mappings, you could go into the management studio here and just go into that mapping table. I can show you how to kind of filter it so you're only looking at that one client. but you would simply, either change a GL account number or you would just add a new row for the new mapping that's needed.
Okay.
Now, can you bring up the Management Studio again? Okay, so this stored procedure is what is actually kind of feeding into that report. Okay, so that's just feeding from there. All right, so on this, all I have to do is add the client GL map table.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically
Mm-hmm.
match up each one of these. And then I can tell it to add the GL account. I want to make sure we select all rows from there. Good. And so now here, if we refresh,
Are you working on the current one that you built, or is this a new one?
this is the current one.
Okay.
So now if we were to rerun this, I can actually run a report from in here, and instead of publishing it, I can test it in here, and now you can see, because I didn't have the field on there before, so now it actually pulled in the mapping automatically.
So when you did that first assignment, went back to the report, it didn't have it, that's when you had to add the additional field.
Yeah, apparently I didn't build it out there.
That's fine. That helps me understand what you're doing. Yeah, so I get it.
But now, like if you went to that Excel file, filled everything out as needed, and we copied and pasted it back into here, when you rerun the report, all the accounts would automatically be out there.
Okay, so this one's essentially ready to go. We just have to get the mapping done and the actual assignment
Correct.
of the account.
Yeah. Now, does this client, are they looking for something that they want to import into their system, or are they just looking for?
Yeah, they do want to import it, and I believe this particular one is how you have it in a single column. Do you have the ability to put debits and credits into parallel?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah. Okay. Basically, what we would do is, we could do it in a couple different ways, but it's just a matter of taking the amount. If it's a positive, we put it into the debit column. If it's a negative, we put it into the credit column.
Right.
Otherwise, if it's a negative number, the debit would be 0. If it's a negative, the debit, if it's a.
I'm with you.
Or vice versa. Yeah.
I'm with you.
And then what we can do also is we could kind of take this query, because you're going to, as you probably notice that you might have, you're going to have a lot of duplicates in terms of like, well, this code goes to this account, this code goes to this account. So like if you were going to want to, if the client was going to key it and they see a bunch of lines with the same account number, they're going to be like, well, can you tell me what the total is for this account number so I'm not having to, either total it myself or whatnot. We could basically, once the mapping is mapped, we could have it create a report that summarizes based on GL account. So the total for account 1000 is this, the total for this account is this. But you could still give them this other detail report so they can kind of see,
Right? Okay. Well, good. This is we've accomplished today what I was hoping to accomplish, is to see it and to know that we can do what I think we need to do.
Yeah.
We're obviously going to need some more training on this. I'd like to get Jennifer involved as well when she's done with her giant conversion today. So,
okay.
Is it feasible?
But this report here is kind of like the first step. Like if you say, hey, we got a new client and we want to start with them, you basically, the first step would be come out here, through Darwin, just click on that report manager, run a report for that client's GL. Now, if you have a client that has more of a unique need where they're mapping based on position versus department, the position is pulling out there. I kind of have it hidden on this report because I don't come across that a whole lot, but it does happen. We may just need to basically make a new version so that one that maps by position you can pull. But your first step would be to run the report and get the GL accounts filled out. After that, we can slice it and dice it and have it presented any way you want.
So can we just go through that from the very beginning? So let's close out everything and kind of go back in from the start.
Yeah. So, that one's saved now. So, like, if you go to that web page, the report manager web page in Darwin, you would just go out there and get to the same report with the GL mapping now.
So this one here?
Yep.
So if I go here and refresh it, there you go. Okay. Yeah. So we came out here, we ran this report. This is the one I've got to export and fill out. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So
you can ignore any irrelevant data. Like I noticed workers' comp is 0, and I can actually tell the system, I could probably create a revised version that does not show zeros. The zeros are helpful here, so because like everyone's hit their FUTA and SUTA cutoffs this year. So if you don't put in the mapping right now, when next year comes around, you're not going to have the mapping. So that's kind of why it shows 0 here. But we could have it so that when you actually give them the actual report, it won't show those zeros.
Okay, good. So we basically filled that out. We've got to get rid of some of the columns, and I'm looking at, what am I looking at to get those columns that you deleted? Within here?
Well, you sent it to Excel, and that's where you deleted the columns, but basically, the columns that you need are in that mapping table.
Okay, so here's I'll pull this over here. Oh, I've already got it open. Okay, and then the mapping table is in the studio?
Yes. I happen to have it open, but it's the reports, tables, and then there's only one table there.
This one?
Yep. What you would want to do is, we'll go back to, like if you just right-click on it and then do edit, just whatever it says there, that basically opens up to where you could paste in, you could go to the last row and paste in data there.
So that's where you're pasting in the assignment that you do. Okay.
Yeah.
And then once that's in there, then it's just a matter of running it back at the that website.
Yep. Yep.
Sweet.
Now, when you get ready to do the first one, let me shadow you just so I can make sure everything looks okay the first time. It's also not a bad idea that, like, maybe down the road, once you've done this a few times, you might want to try copying and pasting the first row in here first, just to make sure it looks, everything goes okay. Or if you happen to have an extra column that you didn't see, maybe it was hidden, who knows, and you go to paste in here, you're going to get an error. Well, if you have 300 that you're trying to paste, it pops up with the error 300 times and gets very annoying. It's kind of like in Darwin, if you ever gotten a pop-up like 300 times because it's going through every record.
Yeah, yeah.
So sometimes it's not a bad idea to try a record here first just to make sure it's going to go in okay, or that once in a while, just because I wasn't thinking, I had the code in the position backwards, so you might catch that versus pasting everything in there incorrectly and then you have to delete stuff. But
well, do you have time now? Can we do one of these?
Sure.
Let's do it. Okay, so I'm going to pull this over here, which is what I have to fill out, and then I've got this, which I'm going to use as my mapping here. So I've got like earnings, deductions, taxes, all that good stuff. So if I'm looking at, so these are all of the credits, okay, taxes. Now, okay, good. So all these TO bonus. Now, where are these coming from? Salary?
I mean, that's their actual pay codes.
Okay, but there's more. So are they, can I just add to this?
Yeah, so what you could do is, like, say for Department 10, because this is pulling strictly based on what they were paid under, you could, add a line here and then just kind of say, well, I'll copy this information down. You need to.
So this is that specific invoice that we generated.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you then we have to put every potential code in here, don't we?
Correct. Now, I haven't ever gotten around to doing it. I've been kind of toying on the best way to do it. It would be possible to write a query that either looks at like a larger range and then kind of says, hey, for the last year, for these departments, all of this activity happened at some point, so that you could maybe get more of a true, hey, here's everything that needs to be mapped.
Yeah.
Or we could, consider looking, now that would require it looking at history. The other option would be to say, hey, go look and see all the active pay codes that these employees are assigned to and what departments, and export them here and say, hey, here's a list of what's out there that if they're paid under, you would need to have mapped.
So let's just say a pay code that we don't put in this mapping is used. Does it default to something?
No, it just comes up with a blank on there, and then with other clients, they just go into the mapping and manually add it as needed. But, I mean, I would recommend, like, for instance, if this client pays holiday, and holiday is going to come out there, that you go ahead and we go ahead and add it now, so that it'll be out there. It just depends on the client. A fair amount of the time, if you run a particular invoice, you're going to get 95% of the items that they use.
Yeah.
But usually the only ones that with other clients I've encountered is it's vacation and sick, that if they map those specifically,
right,
PTO, if you don't have certain people using PTO in a pay period, and you run the mapping. But It would be possible to kind of make more of a general mapping report that says, hey, based on the date range that you specify, here is a list of all of the types and codes and departments, the combinations that we came across.
Okay. So then theoretically, if they use a code that's not mapped, it's going to result in an unbalanced report?
No, it'll still come out here. Just the GL account won't have anything in it. It'll just be blank.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So then
So like right now, they're all, yeah.
That'll tell us to go back and map it. All right. What's the format of this field? Like, is it general? Because this, for whatever reason, this guy's got his actual accounts are that. So can I change
you would
the
basically
format?
want to format it with decimals there to show two places.
But I can do that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Ultimately, when it's put into the table, it's stored as a text value. But it'll take whatever you have here as a text value.
A quicker way to do this, but that's basically what we got here is.
Yeah.
Okay, let me map this. And how much longer we got here? All right. Okay. So then you've got your taxes, which I believe are the same for everything. So if I go over here, ER, all right, so that's like a med. I don't know if it makes sense, Dave, for me to do this for a half hour and then we can reconvene if you want to do that, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, that's fine.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we get back together at 10:30?
Yeah, that works.
All right. I'll just keep this meeting on, and then you can just call back in at 10:30.
Okay, that'll work.
All right. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
All right, yeah. All right.